on some real estate experts onto the panel today, people that I've known for a long time, to ask them their story, to ask them their tactics, to ask them what works really well for them. And while we're doing that, we need to pass around just a piece of paper. Just write your name, email address, so that way we could report that back into the chamber of like, here's our attendance and this is what they're looking. Also helps us as we're coming up with new topics that we want to know, like what's needed from you guys, like what kind of struggles are you having in business. We'll be able to reach out to you and just say, what do you want? We don't spam. We don't believe in sending a bunch of message. But I might ask you a question like, would you be interested in sharing? Would you be interested in these kind of programs that we're creating? So that's it. Okay. So they're going to be passing around that. So today on our panelists, why don't you guys come on up? Do you guys all have water or coffee or anything that you need? Okay, come on up. Yeah, please shut that thing off. That's going to blind us. There you go. Yeah. Hey, if anybody needs to go to the bathroom break, just go. Please don't go in your seat. All right. Same with you, Thomas. Yeah. And then I just need a few more mics for the panelists. All right. So what I'm going to do is, in the format of today is a panel conversation. All right. So this is going to be a conversation between me and them and between the audience, you guys and them. All right. So when you're asking a question, please keep it to like 30 seconds. Don't go on this whole thing and, don't ask about cap rates. Don't ask about super detailed questions to put these guys on the spot to make them do numbers in their head, right? You could ask it all. Ask all the tough questions to Thomas, all right? So as you're doing that, but just keep your questions to about 30 seconds. So if you do have a question, raise your hand. I'll make note of it, and then I'll kind of help lead and guide this conversation, okay? So enough about me. So let's start. Today's topic is sales and innovation, and I brought on some of my real estate buddies to kind of say what's going on in the world of sales and innovation in real estate. So let's start with Thomas. Thomas, why don't you tell us a little bit about, here's a microphone. Awesome, perfect. Why don't you take about 3 minutes, give us an idea of who is Thomas? Like, who are you? What do you do? Let's go.
That'd probably take 2 or 3 days. So, Thomas Oldenburg. Well, you can Google a lot of it. They made me Jewish on there, but my last name is B-O-R-G, Oldenburg. So it's thomasoldenburg.com. You can look up a lot of my history. Had probably close to a dozen businesses in my past. Construction, finance, very detailed scale. I owned a consulting business for quite some time. Got into real estate about 6 years ago in mobile homes, RV. That changed drastically within a few months of being into it, from mobile home to RV. Then I got to multifamily apartments because the institutional, as you follow the money, things just change. So I've been all over the place in real estate. And over the last 6 to 12 months, do a lot of development for myself, take on some large funds, raise all my own money, and have some fun. So look forward to the questions. Thanks, Ed.
Very good. Crystal, she's one of our neighbors, friends of the family. Super proud of you for doing this. I know this is a little bit out of comfort zone. You're such a relational person and super kind. So thank you for doing this. Crystal, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Thanks, Josh. Josh is a sweet neighbor of ours. So I have a brokerage downtown Ocala. I live downtown, work downtown. Been showing property for about 40 years. Licensed for about 19. I joke that I grew up in real estate. My grandfather, my father were land developers, real estate brokers. So it has been my life. Enjoy remodeling houses, done some land development, some commercial. Now I have, the last 4 years, I've had a small brokerage of 8 agents now. And that is what I'm working on now.
And then Beau, if you believe this, stand up, Beau, for a second, just to give you an idea of like size differences. I used to wrestle this guy in high school, and I at one point I was able to beat him. So I don't know if I'd be able to do that now, but Beau and I have known each other for 25 years. He's a great friend. I love him and his family. Beau, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So a little bit like Thomas, and I didn't know this, but I've got a construction, finance background. I got into commercial real estate. I've never done residential. I don't think I could deal with the emotions. So those of y'all that do, my hats off to you for sure. Commercial real estate, has turned a lot, like Thomas said. So essentially, I kind of got into leasing right off the bat. Retail probably being 75% of what I do. Started my own brokerage firm. So a little bit different. Ocala is we don't really have many institutional firms here. So on the commercial side, Colliers, CBRE, JLL, those big hitters aren't really here. The boutique I started with, they were institutional. So I got to learn a lot how to do business like the big guys. So some of the centers I have are institutional. Most of my clients are institutional. And started my own firm about 9 months ago. I got to go through the boutique model with Front Street when I started. We got bought by a big corporation, Avis and Young. Then I moved to NAI, which was a franchise. So I got to see the three models. Really liked the boutique. A lot of the smaller aspects. I'm born and raised. I was born in Orlando, moved here when I was 3, so I know Ocala very well. And a lot of the boutique model is what I follow with my brokerage firm now. Unlike Crystal, I am a brokerage firm of one broker, and it's Beau Broker, and that is my real last name. That'll probably be a question. It always comes up. It came up 3 times already. We haven't started. That is my real last name. I did not change it to move into the industry. But I love commercial real estate. I love chasing deals. I've always been excited. I look forward to getting to know these guys and getting to know you guys and answer any questions that we might have. And anything we might not have, you could probably follow up with us later and we'll try to figure it out.
For sure.
That's probably why we're up here, is because we're good at researching.
Yeah. So
probably Crystal a little bit better than us.
Yeah, she's definitely smarter than all you guys.
She seems analytical. Yeah, that's why I put her in the middle. She looks better, and she's probably smarter.
Yeah. All right.
Me and Thomas might be a little bit of a.
All right, Beau. All right, here we go. So when it comes to
and I don't think Josh beat me.
Touche. All right. In my head, I did a Napoleonic complex. So when it comes to sales, all right. So we're going to be talking about sales and innovation. I'm going to ask you guys, describe like what kind of sales person are you? Because there's many different types of sales strategies. So if you had to describe yourself, what kind of sales person are you? Let's start with Thomas. Grab the mic, sir. What kind of sales would you say describe how you operate?
Impulsive, for sure. I'm very aggressive, very no bullshit. I push probably 90% of the people away. However, I close 95% of everything I'm involved in.
All right. So before you hand off the mic, when we talk about aggressive, so you and I are hanging out, we're going to do a deal together. We're driving down the road and, you see a sign. When we talk about impulsive, or you see a property and you see maybe the owner, and I'm driving the truck and you're going to be like, pull over, right? Describe what does that look like when it comes to an impulsive sales driven person? If you and I are hanging out and doing the deal together, what does that look like?
I'll tell you a story. So yesterday,
hold the mic close.
Yesterday I was at a property down south, different county, and how the context is. So I was brought in by a Canadian group and another guy who don't have any context to the deal. They don't know anything about it. They said, we need a broker. We need somebody to cover the deal. We need this, that, and the other thing. Underwrote the deal, looked at everything, but I did not see the property in person. And he said to me, well, what are you going to do if somebody asks you? I said, well, I'm going to tell them I'm going to have a wedding and we're going to get a venue and I'm going to go on this. And he said, I probably shouldn't say what really happened, but told him this long, detailed story about what type of wedding it was going to be and what we were going to do. And I said, at that point, they'll be so confused. I said, he's going to give me any information I want to know on the property. So something like that.
You just dive in and you figure it out
completely.
Yeah. Cold calling. Will you just call someone up out of random?
I've probably made 20,000+ cold calls in my life, and all of those are.
Yeah. So we'll be going through the different types of sales individuals. And my goal for here is not for us to go, ooh, I wish I was more like this. It's to kind of find your own sales strategy that really works for you. So as you're hearing people talk, try to find, someone that you relate with, and think of questions that you might have, because you might be the hunter, right? Like, we'll call this guy the hunter, the door kicker downer, right? He's the guy on the front edge. But let's him.
Well, it's understanding.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Okay. It's understanding really what the market is, understanding what you're trying to do. That's why it's impulsive. It's a weird question. It's really the lowest common denominator of how I'm going to get after the equal sign. So whatever it means, I'm completely informally educated. I've done everything myself. So all I care about is how to get after that equal sign. And where most of my successes come from is I can do it much faster than everyone else. And I can do it in ways that they would have never thought of. So whatever it be, obtaining a property, obtaining a listing, obtaining this, I've gotten to screaming matches with people it was unlistable property. And Cheech knows one of the ones I'm dealing with recently. The guy's just a terrible human being. But you deal with these people, and that's the way it works. You have to do what you have to do, and no one else can deal with it. So it's just how it works.
Yeah. So, Crystal. Yeah. All right. So, yeah. Yeah. So, describe to us, if you had to describe your approach to sales through Snook Realty and through your relationships, what would that look like?
So probably more of a service approach. I've always kind of looked at what I do as a service rather than me trying to sell somebody something. Certainly a salesperson, but definitely more of a service approach. I'm very impulsive as a buyer myself, but I understand that a lot of my consumers need handholding and educating, and probably is a little more empathetic and compassionate on that end.
Yeah. So let's do this.
In reality,
So hold on one second before we do that. So when it comes to who would be a good fit to maybe work with the grandmother listing their house, who's been in that house for maybe 60 years and walking through and such like that, probably this kind of relationship. When working with an investment fund or something like that, and they've raised $100 million and they have to deploy that money today, or they have to go report back in, you probably want to, an ass kicking door knocker.
they're not looking for empathy.
They're not right. So it's different. And this is the beauty of today's conversation, because as we go down further on, we're just going to see I want everybody, especially as entrepreneurs, to know how you're wired and the kind of people that you want to work with and that you really gel with, because otherwise, sales could be brutal, right? Who here would consider themselves a good salesperson? Okay, awesome. So we have a few. Who here is terrible at sales? Okay, we have, and then everybody else who didn't raise their hand, where do you guys fall? Like, so you do it because you have to do it, because you have to pay the bills or something like that? Okay, cool. So, Beau, if you had to describe what kind of sales person are you, what kind of sales strategy would describe how you approach things?
So I would say naturally I'm wired, my DNA is a lot like Thomas. I think through a lot of experience and time and a lot of life experience, not even in real estate. I believe that I've transformed and made myself a little bit more into the service side too. So I would say I'm relational. I'm pretty good at being a chameleon. I'm going to be open and honest. So if I'm dealing with a client like Thomas is dealing with, I read that pretty quickly and react and act quick. I have a lot of people, especially some of my New York clients, that, when they call, you better answer. When they want you to do something, do it. And then I have some clients who are super casual. One of them's riding his boat back from the Bahamas. He owns 2 blocks downtown Ocala, and the guy Thomas is dressed up like extreme, like
He's got holes in his shoes.
Thomas makes him. Thomas looks like he's in a tuxedo compared to what this guy wears. But he owns two blocks downtown. But he's super chill. He, like I said, he's coming home from the Bahamas. I know that I could be a little more. I still answer his phone call. I still do what he needs me to do, but I know how to react to both of those people. That's one extreme to another extreme. So I think my DNA is a little like Thomas, playing football, sports, kill, murder, hunt. I love hunting, by the way. I think through time, I've learned service and relationship has made me find kind of a balance.
Yeah.
I think reading your client is very important.
Yeah. So as we're going through this, if you do have questions, just raise your hand. What we're going to do is we're going to go a little bit more into detail on maybe sales and maybe sales strategies, sales tactics. But before we do, so start thinking about, like, if I was a new agent working alongside you guys and you guys are mentoring me, right? And I fit your different personalities, so you're going to mentor me the way you are. I want you guys to say, what would your sales strategies and training be like? Here's some maybe 3 pieces of advice for Josh. But before we go there, we've got a question in the back. Mr. Nathan, what is your question? Should we run him a mic, or should he just speak out loud? What would be best for YouTube? Okay, Nathan, stand up. Who are you? What's your question? You got about 30 seconds, and maybe, just go for it.
Yeah, Nathan, Blue Heron CPAs. So we understand who you guys are. How does someone sell to you if we identify you as a customer?
Okay, great question. All right. So the question is, if you were being sold, how do you like being sold to? Beau?
My first reaction was good luck. My second reaction with a little bit of thought, which I'm not good at doing, which I guess would be reaction, thought. Yeah, before you hit send, or this is the email follow-up to the one that I just threw up on. I really, it's a need. So you need to show me that I need that. A lot of times I already know what my needs are. So if there's a program or, let's say in business, there's something that will better my company, whether it's another listing site or some kind of process or procedure or software that I can use that's going to make my job easier that I do need. I need to be shown, here's what it is, here's your need, here's how we meet the need. And that's really how I'm sold. Yep.
Okay. Crystal or Thomas? Do either one of you guys have a response to that?
Quality, for sure. I'm very impulsive as it is, so it's got to be something very quality. I have 6 pairs of the same shoes. I've driven the same car in 4 different models. I beat everything hard. I run my guns hard. I run my life hard, but everything gets maintained properly. And if you try and drive a Kia the way you would drive a Lamborghini, the maintenance schedules are different, so everything's very focused. So if I'm being sold on something, it's got to be quality, and I'm impulsive, so I'll buy it if it really makes sense. I probably have 10 of things I don't need that I've been sold on, but I'll sell you on them too, because they're the best thing ever for whatever impulsive drive. So that's, I guess, a little quirk, but that's why there's a market. That's why new things come. That's why they sell
Amazon.
$300,000 cars and $10,000 cars. There's a market for everything. There's a huge.
For sure. Do you have a response to that, or do you want to move into?
I can add on it.
All right, please go.
Definitely love the quality. So quality for sure. I'm an easy sell. I love to buy things. So, but for me, just get straight to the point. I have a almost 7-year-old daughter, and everything, when we give her a question, it's yes or no right now. And I'm kind of the same way.
Yeah, very cool. All right, so Paul, hold your question for 1 second. So I'm coming to work with you, Thomas, and you're gonna train me to be like you. What are 3 things I need to know or need to learn? What advice do you have for Josh to become the sales hunter that you are, as effective, maybe even better?
I'm going to ask you a lot of questions, and it's going to be whether you're bought into your own personal lifestyle and habits. Because in order to run a race car, you have to have everything that's a race car part. They're organized differently. They're manufactured differently than something else. So I would probably, as I did with you in one of our first conversations, I dumped a dozen books on you. I said, don't ask me any questions on any of that stuff until you read those dozen books. That's a big thing. I did the same thing with Chief. It's because wherever your mind is, and that's what people don't understand is, you can't just pick a player and be that player. You got to figure out who your player is and be the best of that one. You are the only. You're not the best this or the best that. And I'm going to take a tangent because this is worth them hearing. When I sold the business in 2016 and had a hard breakup from a finance company who was a good friend of mine. And I did a little bit of reinvention. I'm like, well, what am I going to do? And I probably read 60, 70 books, read some of them 4 or 5 times and just went through them real hard. And, in that reinvention, I wanted to be as much of myself as possible. And I was looking at this time, Gary Vaynerchuk was coming out and Grant Cardone just started raising money. And I'm looking at these guys and I read Sell or Be Sold and I read a couple of his books. And I'm like, yeah, all right, whatever. As soon as he started selling me, I was done with him. Gary Vaynerchuk, same thing. I was like, oh, this guy's onto something. I'm like, he keeps it real. He goes quick. He's building a great company. His content's real. He puts out a lot. If anybody knows me, I'm going to dump information the entire time I talk. That's just the way I like to go. And Gary Vaynerchuk was very similar. As soon as he started selling me, I pulled back. When I started making money in real estate, about the second year in, because I made $0 the first. I was in a residential company and I only sold commercial real estate. So that's a lot of what I got. And when I started making money, I said, okay, I'm only going to do this. And again, I'll talk forever. So the answer to the empathy thing is when somebody's moving $100 million, when they have a 10% pref that they're paying to people, when they're raising other money for this and they don't want empathy. They don't want me to say, hey, how are you? How is your wife? How is this? Thomas, did you send this? Okay, great. Call this guy. Okay, great. Do this. They're 30 and 45-second conversations a lot of the time. So it's about figuring out where you belong as a character. And I'll again end with this. I probably said that 3 times. My sister just got into real estate. And I told her, I said, pick a character. I said, like Hollywood, pick a character. And you have to do everything it takes to maintain that. If you want to be Fight Club, you got to do everything it takes to be Brad Pitt in that movie. You can't just hack it. It doesn't work that way. Because as something anyone with money will tell you, money exposes people. Period. It doesn't do anything else but expose who you actually are. So.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. So this is when Thomas and I were getting together, going through some of my own struggles and issues with business, with family. I was just getting the crap of life kicked out of me. Anybody here had that happen in the world? Okay, cool. So that was going on, and a few of my friends reached out and go like, "What the hell's going on?" And I was talking with Thomas, and we were walking around, and we were talking about sales and growth and such like that. And he goes, "Hey, I got something that'll help you." And he's like, "You need to go buy these books." I thought they were going to be like sales books or sales strategies or this or that. No, it was like all on mindset. And it was crazy stuff. But it's like, I learned this in wrestling, Beau, when I beat him, is the body goes where the head goes. And as entrepreneurs, if our head is going in a different direction or all over the place with focus and all this stuff, then we're going to be all over. But like mindset is so valuable. So like I really appreciate those books. Still working my way through them. They're deep. But Crystal, so I'm going to come work with, hang my license with you. And I want to, get in the game that you guys are in. You guys are doing a great job with your own real estate stuff and with building out your brokerage. But how would what's some advice that you have for me as you're mentoring me and helping me become a great salesperson like you?
So I think positive mindset is huge, especially in the sales industry. People can get defeated easily. So just continuously being positive, being able to take rejection, just being resilient in that aspect. Work ethic is important. Something I see a lot of people getting into real estate, and social media makes it look so glamorous, but there's a lot of an ugly, dirty, sweaty, hot side to it. So can you really handle the work that needs to go into it?
When it comes to rejection, so I have a high need for approval, acceptance, and cold calling. Like sometimes I just do it because I have to, but rejection like sometimes hits me hard. And like you're mentoring me, and I'm like, Crystal, like, man, I made 100 phone calls, I knocked on doors all day, and I just keep getting rejected, and it's affecting me. What advice do you have for me to work through that?
celebrating the little wins, looking for any win that you have, celebrating the smallest accomplishments.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you. All right, Beau, I'm coming to work with you. So you're going to be I'm going to double your agency right off the bat. We're going to go to a two-man firm, and you're going to mentor me and help me become as successful as you are. And what advice do you have for me on sales and growth?
So I always start with doing what Thomas said is I ask a lot of questions. I let them know that I'm going to show you what worked for me, but you're going to need to find out what works for you for sure. Also, you're not going to make any money till your second year. I don't care. I have had two. So I made a lot more than Thomas made. I made $5,000 my first year in commercial real estate. Now that's full time.
I got sued twice.
He went negative. All right, so you did good.
So I'm listening to him be a killer. Maybe I'm glad that I'm not so much of a killer. Maybe I'm like in the middle of him and Crystal now. There is a story to take way too long, but it was even, a detective came to me and said I was doing real estate before I was in real estate. It was insane, but it did teach me to make sure. My boss at the time said, if you always do the next right thing in these situations, you never have to worry. Ever have to worry. And I have held on to that so many times, and there's been so many times where I've been able to just, okay, a little bit, somebody offered me cash one time. I worked with him, and we ended up not doing a deal, and he wanted to give me cash, and I didn't take it. We didn't do a deal. It wouldn't have been right. I wasn't working for myself at the time, so truthfully, it should have gone to the broker and then to me. And I'm glad I didn't do that because I can go to sleep at night. And I always believe when you do the next right thing, even though it's hard and difficult, it always comes back around to you. And the thing that I've heard with both of them on this subject is talking about mentality. I don't go one day without listening to a podcast or reading something that talks about being mentally strong, focused, making the life that you want. I don't remember which one said it, but your body definitely follows your mind. I think that was Josh. And Josh did beat me because in wrestling, technique is 100% the way. And if you know how to wrestle or taekwondo or jiu-jitsu and you know how to use somebody's force against them, he could take my strong self and kick my own butt with my own strength. I was a football player. I just want to go tackle people, and I want to stay in shape in the offseason. But I did want to put that out there. But mentality is big. You can either make yourself or break yourself. And going back to the junior brokers, I've had a handful of them, 3 of them which I've had just since I've started my own business, none of which are with me, because commercial real estate is hard. And most of them would say, well, my goal is to make $100,000. And I've told them 20 times I made $5,000 my first year. And I'm good at what I do. It's not like I sat around on my tail and, didn't do anything. I was hustling. I was painting a couple of times a week, and then I was working in the office, answering the phone while I'm painting to make the money. And they're not working for me, but I would say find your niche and stick with it. I think Thomas said this before we were chatting before. Find what you're good at and stick with it.
Sure.
Don't try to take on the next whatever the week's Kool-Aid is or what looks glamorous. It sounds awesome that Thomas is working with these hedge funds and people that have a lot of money. If that's not your niche, don't do it. That's his niche. Crystal's got her niche. I've got my niche. Stay in your niche and have a positive mentality, and you will do well.
Yeah.
Keep moving forward despite the hardships. And when you go through hardships, like Josh said that he was going through a couple of years ago, which, I was there for with him, you grow and you learn. And I've gone through some hard stuff, and Josh has been there. So it makes you relatable to people. Be relatable,
Do you guys find it interesting? And then we'll go to you, Paul, for a question. Do you find it interesting when I asked about sales strategy? Nobody here said, let's build the list. Let's start, doing that. Now, those are tactics, right? Everybody was talking about knowing yourself, knowing the kind of people that you work with, maintaining character, right? Like that we're talking about sales and innovation. if we go back to like Bible days and read Proverbs or something like that, probably going to be very similar stuff. Character, how we show up to things, right? Who you are as an individual, how you serve people, and what kind of people do you serve with? Because different people need service in different ways. Someone needs money deployed today. Someone needs family legacy, managed with great care. Someone needs these properties leased out, right? So this is what I find interesting. We're talking about sales, and it was all about character, who you are, who you serve. That's pretty cool, right? Paul, what question do you have?
Okay, so obviously I know Beau and Thomas real well, having been in commercial loan financing for the last 16 years. Kind of more directed toward TO, because I know we've talked several times. We've had many communications with different clients, and you've kind of alluded to some of it, but seeing you kind of explode in the last few years, especially during the pandemic times, I mean, I see and I know you have like multi-million-dollar listings that you've taken care of and all the funding. I was just wondering, what were some of the specific things, and whether they're relatable to us or not? I mean, and I know you started working with big money. How did you break in, or what things enabled you to all of a sudden? And I know you're very, very direct, which is great, because when I would bring a client in, he will tell you directly, well, here's this, that, and the other. And I know you ask them a lot of questions and you want to talk with them. So tell us some of the things that you felt helped you propel.
Yeah, so great question. So, I'd like each one of us to answer this question. So the question, let's bundle it this way: is how did you find your niche, and then how did you get what was the turning point that you got traction within your niche? So how do you find your niche, and how do you get movement or traction within it?
And me personally, it's a very strange market out there, and it's changing very quickly, and very multifaceted. I cold called through COVID. I knew people were home, so I would look up the square footage of their house and call them by square footage of their house. I'd look at Windermere, and I came across these guys, and I would just start harassing them on, what do you own? What do you this? What are that? What are you doing? So I'd say maybe 1 in 10 I still speak with. So these guys call me because they knew it was no bullshit. They knew what they were going to get. And nothing's better than me than somebody who thinks they really know disagreeing in something that I can switch tracks on. You're going to have to get back to this question in a minute.
Your show, buddy. Go for it.
It's strictly because the market changes fast. So, it may not be the best thing for them, and I'm going to explain to them. So I'll get a guy on the phone, and he'll start telling me blah, 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 blah. And I'll say, okay, well, what are you trying to do? And they'll say, we're trying to create a family legacy. We're trying to create this. What do you own now? And they'll tell me, sell it all. Usually what I tell them, because it's overly depreciated. I'm getting in and being very involved in these people's lives. I don't have to do that. It's free advice. And I'm giving consulting level advice to people that I used to charge $500 an hour for free. And I do that all day, every day to people and everybody I talk to. And I give it to everyone based on that premise. And these people know I'm not full of shit based on that, because everything they ask, I'm picking them apart on it. What was the question?
No, I'm just kidding. All right. So it sounds like, how did you find your niche? How did you get traction or propelling?
Was being honest with people, and I have, I read 4 Hour Work Week in like 2016, and I'm like, no fucking way this guy can do all this stuff. And I'm like, well, let's start implementing stuff. And I started doing things. And one of the things I wanted to do was 10-year growth in 6 months. And again, looking at that on paper, the average person would start an equation. I just went back and looked at the equal sign. And I'm like, well, how do I get there? And I started doing it. And as I started doing that, I had all the research, I had all the data, I had everything. And now I'm the market. So now everyone comes to me because I put the work in amongst everybody else. So I hope that's the answer on how you gain traction.
Yeah.
Be yourself. Don't be anybody else. Don't try and be better than anybody else. Be you. There is an ass for every seat. I saw him when he started his own brokerage and he wrapped his truck. I stopped outside of the Thai place or Bagelicious one day. I stopped him. And I'm like, well, you can't miss you in that thing. And I'm like, congratulations, going all in. And, how can we work together? What can we do? You do this, I do this. We do nothing of the same thing. How can we work together? What can I do? Call everybody you have and tell them to sell their stuff. They're going to say no. Then I'm going to call them. It's great. This is how it works. When you have relationships and when he goes, I'm not responsible. I told him not to call you. His relationship's safe. But when I bring a contract for cash, my relationship's safe. So stick these up.
I think some of it is your time management, where by your no BS type of approach, you cut right to the chase, in or out, pretty much, or maybe we could discuss it. But some things that are in or out,
If it's got no traction,
Next.
we're moving forward.
Right.
Period. So if it's got traction, I'll talk to you for 2 days.
Right.
Time will kill a deal.
Somebody sent me $37 million proof of funds one day on a deal that was only $2 million. I still talk to the guy every day, a couple times a week. It's just you make relationships in odd places and you jive with people. For sure, it's his life.
It took me 40 hours to read the 4-hour work week. I think you should have got it down to 4 hours so I could have got through it. Anyways, Crystal, how did you find your niche and what propelled you forward? Like, at what point were you like, oh man, this is really working?
So my first few years in real estate were primarily all vacant land sales. Worked with my father, and we would do 500-600 transactions a year, and it was
500 to 600, by the way.
just pushing paper all day long. So I slowly transitioned into residential. Helping people with vacant land. A residential deal would come up here and there, and I was like, okay, this I enjoy. This I'm passionate about. More relationships with people. The vacant land was more paper. So that just became my niche. And I love investing in land, but I don't like brokering it.
Very good. Beau, how did you find your niche, right? Because I've known you for a while, and at one point you were a pastor. You painted houses. You've owned your multiple businesses. Like you've done a lot. How did you find your niche in the? Well, actually, what is your niche for those who don't know you? And then how did you find it? How did you get traction?
So my niche is probably retail leasing is my biggest one. I also do office and industrial. But before we move on, I really like commercial land listings because as a leasing broker, it's busy. I'm getting freaking, this phone, I cannot wait to get an admin and give it to somebody because it does not stop going. The sign calls and the website calls. So, but when you're dealing with quarter-acre tracts, that would be very annoying. But when you're doing commercial real estate on 200, it's really nice. But because it's a slowdown for me. I actually can put a sign out, put it on my 26 websites that I syndicate to, and let it sit there. I'm not getting a call from a guy in New York or California every other week, like, hey, can I get an activity update? So I just want to say that. Mine was probably the firm that I was with. So Front Street, they essentially already had a niche in retail leasing. I liked it because it was known as like the sexy part of real estate, retail. So I'm going to Vegas next week, and there will be millions of people. It'll be different. It'll be retailers from Taco Bell to the largest billion-dollar firm out there, whoever you want to, Publix and Walmart, all those other people. But it was the same. I really kind of just fell into it. I started working underneath a buddy of mine, and I just started working with him. We had 2 totally separate models. Stacy's best friends with them. We're totally different people. And so I kind of figured out what he did well, found my niche and what I did well. And whenever he left the company, I kind of took over and built relationships with those clients. So I've had my clients move from Front Street to Avis & Young from a merger, Avis & Young to NAI, and NAI to my brokerage firm. And I've retained 100% of my clients. I even told one, I'm not going to say his name, but I told one that I wasn't even going to take him to my own firm because it was just too much of trouble. And I left him with NAI. I made it seem really nice, well, it's a large listing. I really don't have the time and effort, but mine was kind of, and I've got to bring the spirituality and God into it at this point. I think I was in banking. I got fired. I started flipping homes, flipped a home, made a lot of money, bought the one across the street, sat on it for 9 months, got scared. Terrified, got into commercial real estate, and I was on fire. I was at the bottom. I needed to do something. I had a family at the time. I needed to work. And so I came in And I was a little like Thomas in the beginning, and then I slowly started to build relationships like both of these people have said, and I didn't have to cold call anymore. I didn't have to try to get this listing. People started calling me. And the big thing was whenever I went through those 4 different firms, all of them coming with me. So they had to send a cancellation notice to, some of them even had to pay an early term fee to leave that firm to come work for me or come with me. And the fact that I thought they all wanted that big institutional name behind it. And when I came and did my own thing, I didn't have that. So I was really nervous, and they all switched over. So that relationship piece, I would say, you talk about fake it till you make it. I don't think I faked it till I made it. I think I worked my ass off until I made it. And I became from the bottom to, like Thomas said, the guy that people call. So yeah, and I think a lot of that also has to do with God. I thank God for taking me through whatever you want to call it, the universe, your higher power, whatever it is. Mine's God, Jesus Christ, and I don't think I'd be sitting in this seat without him by far.
For sure. I knew you in the past. You wouldn't be. I think I visited you in a few places. Like just growing up, just seeing like what I love about Ocala is you walk down the road and if you've been here, actually let's play a game. Who's been here more than 10 years? Keep your hands up. 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. How old are you, Chris? No, I'm not going to ask the ages. All right. But what's cool about Ocala is it's you walk down the road and you just see people. And, this is for me being an entrepreneur and a visionary. My daughter's 10 and she's lived in 10 different homes. I was chasing, right? Jacksonville, Dallas, New York, Orlando. And we came back here through a lot of failure, really. And it was kicking and screaming, but coming back here, seeing all my friends and people that I grew up with and building that kind of community and building relationships, I think is super valuable. So what I want to do as we're moving in, does anybody need a potty break? You guys good? You need it? Okay, cool. Or water? Water, coffee? Okay, cool. Cocktail? Okay. So as we're moving into kind of like the second half of our conversation, what I want to do is more engaged from you guys is what questions do you have about starting your own, working with other people, working under someone? Like, what questions do you have about real estate or sales? So think about what questions you might have. Just raise your hand when you have that question. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going and asking questions along. So if you have a question, just raise your hand. I'll make note of it, and we'll go to that. All right. So when it comes to sales and innovation, like that's the topic of today. If you had to point to one specific resource, whether it's a podcast or a YouTube show or a book, if you had to give Josh just one resource that you think would change my game, what is that resource? Grab that mic. What specific book?
That's a loaded question.
I know it is. And you can pass it on if you need to come back to you.
No, never.
Yeah, don't let go of that mic.
I would say there's 2 answers to that. It depends on where you are in life is really the answer to that. I'll give you numerous titles right now, and anyone that jumps out to you, I'd write down, because these are the things that are incredible. There's a book called Psycho-Cybernetics. If you've never read that, read it immediately. There's a book called Man's Search for Meaning. If you've never read that, read that immediately. There's a book called The Edison Gene, ADHD and the Gift of the Hunter Child. If you've never read that immediately. If you don't think you're ADD and you haven't figured out why you're not ADD and you're micromanaging your kids and you're medicating it, don't do that. Read the book. Those are incredibly powerful tools to start. If you're looking to sell, I would sell or be sold. That's something that if you're not ready to sell, that book will scare you and you won't do it. If you're going to read the book and you're going to complete the book, I would go on to Closer Survival Guide because it'll teach you how to close after everybody's just turning you down. those are important things. I can flip back to a list that I sent to a few people recently because that's where to go. But those are important, and because you need to understand yourself. You need to understand who you are, where you're going, where you came from, because the more valuable people are, the more effective they are, the more they're going to see through your bullshit, the more they're going to not even want to deal with you. So if you want to be effective, if you want to do something, be the best version of that. And as you said, God will take care of the rest. You just show up and work hard.
Don't you love entrepreneurs? I'm like, pick one book, one resource. I'll give you 12 books, and I'm going to grab the mic, not give it up. I love you, Thomas. Sorry. Crystal, if you had to, you might as well just, however many books you want to recommend, but you guys just make the rules. But starting with you, what kind of resources would you recommend in terms of sales or innovation that you would say would be a good fit?
My first thought when I was thinking resources was more mentorship or networking, people to connect with and to support you. I was very lucky. I had my grandfather and my father that mentored me in real estate. I also work with a business coach out of California that I talk with regularly. And they're always suggesting books as well. But I think I'm more relationship and support that way.
Cool. That wasn't even in my brain, but like, this is a community, right? Like, so we're learning and growing together. So we have books and resources, we have coaching in community. But what resource would you recommend?
So this goes to show I'm right in the middle, because while I'm sitting here thinking before they even start speaking, I started thinking about books, and then I started thinking about the network and the community of people and things that I have around me. So if there was one, I would say mentor mindset. It's a podcast. I think it's great. He's a real guy. He's about my age. He's from South Florida, lives in Texas now, entrepreneur. He covers a lot of issues, so it's not just
A lot of stuff we're talking.
he doesn't. I mean, he covers all kinds of stuff. I mean, there's not one that I listen to where I'm not like, I really didn't get anything out of it. It's always an aha, and he comes out with something every single days, and they're short, because I am searching why I have ADHD, why I can't stop looking at my phone, and why my phone's ringing right now on here and I want to answer it. And the guy that's picking his nose in the third row. I don't know why I'm paying attention to all that stuff, but it's the mentor mindset.
Okay.
Rob Dial, and then the other half, that's the Thomas side of me. The Crystal side of me is the group of people that I have established around me. I have a GC, I have clients, I have the things that I need. I have all my online resources, which I think personally the day of sign calls is gone. It works great if you have, and this is another thing, I think Thomas alluded to it. I have one of my pillars is know when to say no. So we only take nice real estate, A and B real estate. I don't want the owner to fly in from Malibu, California, that owns Market Street, and see a dilapidated building that I have, as he's driving around town or when he's meeting with the CEP. So, knowing your niche again is another thing. But I think between both of those, if you can balance out the knowledge and information that's out there, because there's so much stuff out there in the world today. I mean, you can Google anything, you can listen to any podcast, but then the real networking of people, the relationships, knowing who, if I have a client that needs this, I have somebody they can call, and having all those people in places, whatever that might be for whatever area of real estate or business you do, or life, period. Yeah.
So we've got 3 audience questions. We're going to start with, what is your name, please?
Jesse.
Hi, Jesse.
Hi.
What question do you have?
I'm a really bad cook.
I know. I've shown surprise with Jesse. She could talk. So.
What's that?
Is it loud enough? The roof mic is on.
Okay, very good, Jesse.
So I guess my question would be to Thomas and Beau. So I know you guys got into commercial real estate like in the last 5-10 years ish. So in getting into there, making sure that your mindset was right and all that stuff, where did you find or crack the code to access all of the information that you needed? And what resources did you lean on, and what did you look at when you were looking for a mentor? Did you make sure to stay local?
So the rent's due every day.
For sure.
So,
Say Beau first.
so he said, yeah, and actually it'll give him some time to actually think, even though he's been on the so he said, so Thomas said rinse through every day. I would say, yeah, so there's some things that definitely encourage you. Obviously having a family and money is needed. Number two is you've got to move forward. So the reason why I listen to a mentor podcast is because I've been low. You know, a lot of those low times is probably what's really gotten me to the high times, because it's in those low times when I focus, I'm zeroed in. Um, my relationship at home sometimes in the low times are the strongest, because that's where we've grown. I can't think of much growth that I've had really in the high times. So I would say using your low times as really something to drive you forward. Um, there's nothing like fear and pain that motivates you, right?
Yeah.
And another part is, with mentorship, when you network, I just feel like you kind of know. And going back to the God thing, I think that if you ask, he'll give, for the universe, whatever it may be. I think if you ask, it'll come. So look for that stuff. See qualities that you want in people, and look for and ask for a mentor that have those.
Yeah.
Sure.
Crystal, do you have anything as we're bringing the mic this way? Or you could, no? Okay. Go for it, brother.
You are what you eat, for sure.
Yeah.
Figuratively, literally, if you eat shit food, you're going to have shit thoughts, down to the person that's cooking your food, where you are. If you're not shedding friends, you're not getting anywhere. If you're the smartest person, you're an idiot. You should have immediately the 5 people that are surrounding you that take up the most of your time should change, because you should be growing. So those people should be swapped out. I can tell you, I have very few friends who I have as friends who aren't as productive as I am, or whatever the case. And we may not talk for 8-9 months at a time, but it's where you left off. But that's life. You get what you put in. So every day you have to read. Every day you have to be nice to people. Every day you have to take care of your body. Every day you have to drink water. La, 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 la. Everything that everyone knows. There's no magic secret. Put in the work. Put in more work. If you get depressed, you're probably not working hard enough. You probably should have done that and that and that and that and that, and that's why you're depressed. It's not rocket science. Just really keep your head out of your ass. Find people that are positive influences in you. And if you can't, be the positive influence to other people. That's how the world works. And you just cycle through. I mean, the lady at Publix who's checking you out is no different than the guy who's moving this amount of money to the fund. I'm going to be a lot nicer to the lady at Publix.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason for me to be nice to him. And those are real things. And you have to be that's your character. We all have a character, and you have to pick which one you're going to be.
Chris Marshall, what question do you have, sir?
Yeah, with this being a sales innovation meeting, I'd love to hear if you guys have any recommendations on tools, software, systems, processes that have made you more efficient as a salesperson, that have helped you grow, anything like that.
Yeah, what's your favorite tool, software, technology? What could you not live without?
Even better if it's industry agnostic, it might translate to other businesses.
For sure, yeah.
You can
Great
be
point.
CRM.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start. So mine would be Build Out. So Build Out is a commercial platform. Every commercial broker I know in Ocala at least. I think you don't utilize it. Well, you're kind of Remax is a little bit different. You're residential.
platform wars.
I'm kidding. So what Build Out is a platform that I use. I pay them a good amount of money to. I go in. It's basically I fill out when I get a new listing, sales, leasing, whatever it is. I put it in. It populates to my website. I manage my own website. Don't use GoDaddy if you start a business, because they basically give you a template. Pay a little bit more money and use somebody local. If you ever want to do that, ask me some questions. I can tell you all about it. That's one of those low things to high. But Build Out would really be it. So on the commercial platform, it's the commercial broker, a lot of the commercial brokers that have listings use it. So it also syndicates to 11 websites. So I syndicate to 26 websites. It was 29 websites, and then I just jumped off the MLS because it doesn't really serve my purpose.
But what's one maybe industry agnostic? So maybe not real estate specific, but a tool, a tech, something that you use that maybe anybody
So that would apply in that
for brokers.
finding a platform that may be industry specific to you that integrates multiple functionalities, right? Because you're looking to automate, delegate, or eliminate these things.
Yeah.
So
that's
it
exactly what.
combines the CRM, it combines paperwork, it combines outbound to these commonly
Yeah.
used public sources.
I invoice through it. It syndicates to my website, other websites. It builds my brochure. It builds my offering memorandums. It does. It really is the biggest thing I use besides CoStar and LoopNet and all the other ones that kind of syndicate. But this one handles. It probably does 50% of what I need in my business through one website.
You said that's built out
Yes,
and it creates your offer memorandums?
it does. So you initially get with them and you set a template,
Yeah.
and then you basically plug in the information. It doesn't even let you move to the next screen. If you don't get it in, it gives you an asterisk. It's dummy proof. It's something I can go in really quick. It does my brochures and everything. Website page too. So.
Thanks, Bo. What's a tech piece or a tool or software, something that you use for sales and innovation?
So something that I think is very important to use is a CRM, and just any CRM that you're going to use. I don't know that I would promote one or over the other, but just especially for people getting into probably any line of business, keeping track of all of your customers and just loving on them all the time. Most of our customers are going to sell 3 or 4 properties with us in their lifetime. So just always being able to maintain that relationship. And once you get, hundreds and thousands of customers, it's hard to keep track with everybody.
A quick add-on for the CRM, is there any features that you would recommend that a CRM should have, specific things that you need in a CRM? And then can you share what you use?
So I've been using Follow Up Boss. There are many out there, but something that can integrate with your website. A lot of the CRMs don't have texting options, which email is, I probably miss so many emails. So if it has a texting option, that's definitely a plus.
Thomas, tool, software, piece of tech.
Yeah, that's about it. The phone. I happen to be blessed in a few ways. My wife is also my personal assistant, so I have a ton of offset with her. And I don't have any children, so it doesn't take any of my time. I have a ton of my own time. But again, I built my business specific for myself. I can do whatever I want. I can go anywhere I want. I can say no to anybody, blah, blah, blah. So for me, it's being able to wake up and impulsively go through my phone. That should have been replaced probably 2 years ago. But to be able to go through my text stream and just impulsively find it, that's it. That's it. Other than that, I pay a lot of money through CoStar and LoopNet and all these other ones, but because of my wife, she has the ability to correctly go in the databases and upload them. So that makes me a rock star for the AI system. So my phone rings off the wall strictly because of the amount of real estate we sell, how we sell, and we sell very specific real estate. So very specific people call. I don't just get, it's either somebody wanting to give me health care or they have money to buy something. There's very few people that I have wasted traction.
Yeah. In the back, Nathan, what is your question?
So what software do you spend the most money on? And I really don't care about what software that is, but how did you find it? How did you qualify it? And then what caused you to buy it?
What's the most expensive piece of software that you subscribe to?
CoStar, LoopNet, Crexit. So those are the 3 that CoStar bought apartments.com. They spent all the money to get the data, and that's really where the data became. Crexit did something that was interesting. Through COVID, they deployed people on the ground. So they had real data. So Crexit's accurate, CoStar is not. The problem is everyone over 55 years old thinks that CoStar and LoopNet are the answer. The problem is Most of those listings don't even exist anymore, and they're just calling people and nobody's calling them back. So those same people are afraid to hire a broker. Those same people are afraid to use a broker. Those same people are still saying they're going to buy something and don't transact.
Since we just got fingered or something.
Yeah, so mine would probably be build out. Build out's definitely the most expensive, but like I said, it does everything from my invoicing to my CRM, which is a little bit easier because it's just me and not you and 8 other brokers. And my website and my brochures and all that. I will go back and say I do pay for CoStar, LoopNet, Crexi. Those are all great, and I do believe that Crexi is probably going to overtake CoStar. Good example is I was looking for a warehouse, and I went on and looked at one of Thomas's things, and you know, LoopNet, if somebody goes on your page, there's no creeping on LoopNet or on LinkedIn. So if you go on someone's page, it says Jesse went on your page, and you can be like, oh, Jesse's creeping around on my page. That's weird. What you want? Crexi does the same thing. So I did the same. I looked at some of Thomas's, and sure enough, you know, Thomas being the headhunter he is, wrote me and sent me all this stuff on his, you know, hey, you know, here's all the information. I just sold this property, but this one's still available. And so I do think that Crexi is going to overtake CoStar and LoopNet, but CoStar does own. They own 10 different.
One of the things that Crexi did that
And
was very different.
Through COVID, Crexi actually had people on the ground punching in data. CoStar didn't do that. CoStar just tried to pay for it.
So I don't care about the software.
Okay.
I don't care what software it is.
Okay.
I want to know, how did you hear about it? What did you do to qualify it? And then what caused you to actually buy it?
So the CoStar and LoopNet, the answer that I first gave you on they bought everyone else, so they had the data, that was it. That was the qualification, that was the price point.
So that's how you heard about it too, is that they bought it?
Correct. Well, they come right to you.
Okay.
They are the system, the platform.
Gotcha.
How Crexi came, Crexi was done, you can tell by somebody that was our age. They organically did it. They called their way through. It was minimally invasive. It was a good feel. They showed the quality. They really did a great job when they rolled that out. And I feel like that's the reason that I didn't even ask them. I'm like, sounds wonderful. Click. And then after 3 months, I'll decide. And in 3 months, I started getting more, because this was through COVID. I started getting more through Crexi than I was CoStar. And it was just because of the way they built it out. And so that kind of verified it for me.
Do you guys have to add to that?
So for,
But the residential.
I guess the source, I guess the largest investment I spend on technology is local companies and local people that I do business with that are providing me services. Just relationships.
So how do you qualify them?
How do you qualify potential partners?
Good question. Quality, definitely. And I guess probably most of my partners are people that I know and trust and that I've seen their success.
And then what triggers the purchase once you identify that that's the quality that you want?
A need.
Did you go through any demos? Did you have any free trials? Stuff like that? Is that what you're looking for, Nathan? Or
I'm looking for how I can approach someone, how I can build a platform that develops the actual quality that they're looking for, and then how that platform also pushes the need that they need.
It's got to pull data that nobody else pulls. Yeah. That's what you need. It's a data market.
The reason that I'm
Wait for that word all day.
yeah, it's data. The reason that I'm who I am is I'm the data. They call and I say, well, you're wrong. And they say, well, prove me different. Send.
Okay.
And they say, oh, shit, we were wrong. You know, and we're in a weird market to where the A markets and the A firms can't type that in. You can't sit in New York and type in Ocala, Florida and get any metrics. But you can call somebody and they can send you Class A metrics and buildings and things that are under contract and what we sold and price per square foot that blow them out of their mind. And it's similar to when somebody calls about a house and they're like, oh, well, we're building a custom home wherever. And it's like, well, great. They're building them in Ocala for $1,000 a square foot. And people go, oh, that's the answer. People are spending money there and it's still moving. You know?
Did you have a question? Okay. Jess, did you
Yeah.
had to follow up? Okay.
Well, it was a little bit of a different question. So when you were breaking into the commercial market, we're transitioning from, like, for example, land to how did you establish kind of credibility to those people that you were approaching in order to get their business?
Sell real estate.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
That's
Sell
it.
it. So if you haven't, so for example, I've been really
Sell more.
okay. Perfect.
That's the answer. Work harder.
So go,
On it.
You're either gonna phase out
Yeah.
or you're gonna get good. That's
Yeah.
what's gonna, or you may find somebody in the meantime and you're their number two.
Yeah.
You should get out of what you're doing and run their company. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. Everybody's trying to be number one. Doesn't work that way. Find where you fit and go there. You know, I can't hire anybody. It's never gonna happen. Tried to bring my brother down, went through it. He's a Verizon he's a T-Mobile exec, and I'm like, dude, I'll pay you what you're making there. Just come on. And he doesn't have what it takes. And he doesn't have.
Started doing a lot of commercial leasing downtown, and she's already very successful in it.
Sell more real estate.
Yeah.
That's it. Because there's going to be people like that, like you, way more than me. There's going to be people that like you way more than him. Speak Spanish,
I do.
obviously. That's your market. I'm not going to have that conversation because my Spanish is terrible. I said that. So the biggest thing you can do is sell more real estate because you're going to see where you want to be. You're going to see how you're going to be. So I don't deal with doctors.
Yeah.
I just don't deal with doctors. They are the smartest people they know. And I say, no, thanks. He's tried. He's like, I got these doctors. I'm like, no, refer them to somebody else. They call me. No, because it doesn't work.
Right.
Or you say, what do you own? How much money you have? Send me a proof of funds letter and send me your portfolio now. There's CoStar and Luke calling me now. That's the one thing that they do. I'll give you some. They do call. While we're on topic, I've been through 4 or 5 people at CoStar. I think I've only spoken to 1 or 2 of them. I've never answered this person's call. They call me constantly. They email me. And they are so behind that I'll update listings every 2 days. And then I'll get an email that says you're 25 days overdue. And then this person wants to call me to check up on it. And then, so everyone's out of touch. And that's what you get when you go into real estate. If you're trying to buy commercial real estate, you call a broker, and most brokers are morons. And you're like, well, I guess I'm going to try and do it myself, or I guess I'm going to jump off a bridge, or whatever the case. You just
Don't jump off a bridge.
Yeah, so here's 2 things. So answer your phone. That's big in commercial real estate. I know residential is a little bit different, but answer your phone. A lot of residential brokers or a lot of commercial brokers do not answer their phone. Be straightforward. And just to give you an example, one of my biggest listings that I still have today, I got it by listing. I brought a small tenant. I was doing a tenant representation, which I don't like to do because usually it's one deal. I brought him a tenant. We worked together.
$800 at the end of the day.
Yeah, it was a little bit more than that, but we ended up not even doing the deal. But there were about 6 months later, he calls me and they're ready to switch their listing broker, and I ended up taking over the listing. And then it was from there that I started. I had a sign there, and people started seeing me on LoopNet. I've done some tours with you before. It's getting your name out there, and it takes. I think one thing that we haven't really brought up right now is time. It takes time. You could be as relational as Crystal. You could be as transactional and headhunter-ish as Thomas, but it still takes time.
It spend a lot of money. I spent $250,000 my first 2 years.
It does take some money too.
Spending.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out what works. Trying to figure out what doesn't work. And your bills with nothing coming.
Open your own brokerage firm, and you'll see. You don't realize how much those signs.
Yeah, when I saw him,
People are like, "Oh, your signs are everywhere." I'm like, "Congratulate me when the signs come down, because I paid for them to go up. I get paid when they come down."
And now that money that you spent, was it on marketing or just on
on myself, on going and meeting certain people, and listen, it's been a disaster that we haven't talked about. Again, lawsuits and attorneys and
stand over here.
somebody calling you and saying you're not getting paid because we don't want to. That happens all the time. I still have that happen. Now I laugh, and then they got a call from the attorney. My first time, I'm like, what are we gonna do? It's $40,000. Now I'm like, good, go fuck yourself. And then the attorney calls because you need to know how to do business.
Yeah.
They know that on the other end, and that's the answer. You fit where you fit. If
So, Crystal, going from 500 to 600 land deals a year, transitioning into residential, how did you make that transition? To residential brokerage. What did that look like for you?
So back then I was with Century 21 and I stayed with the same brokerage, just kind of changed my niche. I think investing in yourself is huge. And like Beau said, just more transactions. I think you said it as well. More experience, it's going to give you more confidence. When I first got in real estate, I was 21 years old and I had no confidence. And I was like, gosh, why don't people want to give me the biggest asset that they have to sell? I don't understand it. But it just took practice, time, and then getting confidence. And then when people know you and trust you and you're very likable, you'll get the business.
Yeah, if you're trying to raise money, the person with the money is going to know whether you belong with their money or not.
Oh, for sure.
But for sure, when you're going, no, and they're going, you don't know that.
Yeah.
So know what you're going to do and know you can execute. I could think back to raising money for other people's deals. And I'm like, I had no right raising money for that. Now, a guy asked me the other day, he was sitting in the passenger seat of my car. He's like, well, when you have 20 million liquid, I'm like, homie, you got 20 million liquid and I'm going to sell you this. And he's like, good point. That's the answer. It's today. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
What we have now is what matters. That's what's transactional. Everybody's going to lie to you. Everybody's going to try and sell. What feels good? Do that.
So we've got about 15 minutes left, just to give you guys a time frame. So if you do have questions, I do want to make sure that you guys get your questions or comments answered. Go ahead, buddy.
So I'm at a critical point. I was plugged in the matrix of the corporate world for so many years. I got really sick, lost my job. I do have a lot of kids. I read all the books that you've told me to read. And mission in life is to the people you serve, right? So I need a commercial property, and a commercial real estate friend was saying, don't buy, just lease now because it was just cheaper. So can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, because I probably do 75% leasing. So there is, and if you notice, you'd be very surprised. So companies like Lowe's, all of these huge companies, a lot of them, even Publix just started buying their own land. They started buying their own stuff. They've always leased. So if you can make more money off of your business, then so those people, and I'll take Hooters for example, because it was a deal that I was a part of. Hooters bought and then did a lease buyback because they know that they make money on wings. They are not a real estate firm. They are not a REIT. They don't sell real estate. They don't want to. They make money on wings and boobs. Let's be frank. And butts. Pork butts.
Yeah.
But they know. So it depends. If you can find a good deal and you know that asset's going to make you money down the road, then buy. If you just want to get in and you know you're going to make money off of whatever you're putting that business in there, lease, because you have absolutely, you have a very small amount of maintenance and responsibility for that building that you're leasing. And it's going to be much, even if your lease is comparable to your mortgage, you can get out of a lease. You can do a 5-year lease. Your mortgage is going to be 20 years, most likely. On a commercial lease, a lot of people take it out 20 years for it to match up with what you're going to pay for a lease. So I would look at, is that asset, now if it's a really good buy and you can sell it and make money on it, buy it. But I would highly recommend, if you're just going to lease a spot and you're going to make $1 million a year selling widgets, sell your widgets and lease. Don't ever.
Do you see the trends of prices coming down with this economic downturn?
Blah, blah, blah.
What he means to say is great question. Let me think through that.
No, I hear it all the time too.
And all that is lined up for you to think that way. Right? So it comes down to this. Can you afford to buy? If you can, you should probably buy something that's not too expensive. If you can't afford to buy, stop dreaming about it and lease. That's the answer. because a lease is going to be, you're probably going to be in it. If you don't have to build out, you're at it for under 20 grand, 15 grand, right? If you're going to buy, good luck, because you're not going to find anything to buy that's not relative or not on the market, or you're going to have to do so much research to find something without a broker, because it's going to be a personal transaction. And then I would owner finance it through that to keep it off the record. And then I would see how the next X amount goes, and then either cash out the building or find somebody to buy the building from you. You may want to own or lease back the building. It all depends on, there's a lot more to it than should I lease or buy. It depends on how stable is the business, what's the purpose of the business, why is the business, how is the business, are you growing, are you, all of those things matter. But no, if you lease, you're locked into that lease and you can't sell the lease, or it's hard to sublet the lease in that economy. Whereas if you buy, even if you overpaid for it, there's all types of fancy ways that you can get around losing the building and losing the business.
So Nathan CPA has a question.
So both, well, I have more of a comment towards what
Okay.
the question is. Run both scenarios. Which one do you make more money in?
Yeah.
If you would have $1 million and you buy $800,000 worth of land and $200,000 worth of inventory, and you make $40,000 that year, that's great. But if you can buy $1 million worth of inventory and make $400,000 in that year, I should probably buy $1 million worth of inventory. Run both scenarios, find what you make more.
But if you can use that money and buy a piece of property, split it in half and sell the half and pay for the other piece of property, he'll agree with me.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying. There's a lot. That's a
It
loaded
all depends on
question.
what you're doing.
Yep.
You know?
Tyler in the back.
You trust
Yeah.
and ask them all these questions.
Yeah. I think if you glean anything from a lot of the answers and the comments, and this is to Jim and to everybody else in this, is that trying to specialize, trying to be a generalist in business, and trying to figure out how to do these very complicated things that they're talking about, the very complicated math that he's talking about, the very complicated taxes that he's talking about, and all the other things. The lesson here to learn is that hire out, talk to your friends, invest in yourself, invest in others, and get to work. Okay? Because really, there's so many possible scenarios, you never know it unless that's what you do for a living. Right? So if you have the thing you want to do for a living, then again, automate, delegate, and eliminate everything else until you're back to that core thing.
Yeah, everybody should have a good banker. Everybody should have a good
There it
accountant.
is.
That's that.
Everybody should have a good broker. Everybody. That's what you need. And you should ask these people all these questions and grill them. You're spending your money on them. Ask them questions. If they can't answer it, make them answer it, or they're not for you. You know, I need to take this time. Sorry. One of the old guys I was talking about the other day.
We're doing a
said to me,
podcast.
I've never heard of a 1031 exchange. Why would my attorney never tell me about a 1031 exchange? I said, well, you can't get paid on your 1031 exchange. And I said, and he's pissed when he sees me making this and him making that. So he wants you to, they don't know why, but the attorney has no idea about the 1031 exchange, and he's shying him away from it altogether. I can tell you 50 reasons why to do the opposite.
Question in the back.
So
What's your name, sir?
Javier Rojas, Fontana Realty.
Gotcha.
So when you first were starting and you were getting profitable and you were doing it, how did you know, or how did you start that next step of delegating and hiring, especially if, say like me, you're a control freak?
Crystal, as you're growing out your brokerage, what did that look like for your first hire? You know, making that decision to hire out and delegate. What did that look like?
Constant struggle for me. Delegating and finding the right help. That's probably the biggest area that I struggle with. I don't know how to answer that for you.
What was the first big thing that you delegated out and you're like, holy moly, I will never take that back under control? For a control freak, what was the first time that you released and you're like, I'll never go back to taking that over? What did that look like?
So I'm kind of struggling with that right now on my social media, because social media is very personal, but it's a big part of our business. It's a big time consumer. And I'm struggling with that right now, kind of releasing that.
It's like your face online.
Yeah, and transaction coordinators as well. That's been a struggle too, just because I like to be so involved. But it's definitely something that you need to do if you want to grow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, go for it, Bill.
I want to add to it because I'm definitely a control freak. I have a bunch of junior brokers work under me. But what I have been doing is talking to a lot of people who are in those positions and who have delegated. So Scott Caldwell is a good friend of mine. He's a good example of, and I thought of him because of social media. I said, I don't know if y'all have ever noticed, but if it's your birthday, Scott Caldwell comments on his birthdays, and he does it to everybody all around. And I'm like, dude, how do you do that? He's like, well, I don't. I have two people that do that for me. I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense. Okay. So you just like started, he said, hey, I said, yeah. I was like, I had somebody I trusted and they started doing it. And I was like, oh, wow, I don't have to spend half my day doing all this social media stuff. And it made me realize, these big companies, Ben Marciano is another good friend of mine. There's no way he could run Zone without delegating. And he is a control freak. He is just like me. When I knew him at the Y, and even really until COVID when he started really going through some stuff. But, if you want if you're a desire and you want your business to grow to that level, you've got to give up tasks. You've got to delegate. You've got to be able to do it. And the best way to do it is probably get with some people that have done it.
Or change the business model. That's another one. Change the business model. Just to where you don't have to do so much work and you can get the results you're looking for. Just in the meantime to kind of hack into.
Very cool. Tyler.
Yeah, hey, Todd Melvin, commercial lender at Florida Credit Union. I know this is sales and innovation, but I did just want to pick your brains on what you're seeing in the market. This question might be more catered to Beau, but specifically with office space leasing and purchasing, kind of what are you seeing post-pandemic now that online positions and work from home stuff, is becoming more prevalent?
Yeah. So it's funny you say that because I figured that question would come up. I didn't really know where this conversation was going to go today, so I tried to play some things out. I noticed in the beginning, and a lot of big firms and small firms started to do the at work. We all probably called the 1-800 number and had the dog barking in the background because homeboys at home or homegirls at home. Homegirls at home. Yeah. Home. Everything's at home. Yeah. I work at home a lot because I have 3 kids. My wife's stay-at-home mom. I like for her to stay sane. So when I'm home, I can, but I've still got to answer the phone. I've still got to do things. But what I found is these companies and a lot of these conferences I go to, this has been a topic before. They're going back to the office because they cannot properly manage these people. The productivity goes down. I have an office and I don't need one. I can do almost everything from my cell phone and the rest from Starbucks or my house. I have an office at the house, but I have an office because I know I'm more productive there. And I think these big companies are starting to see it. And I've seen a growth in office leasing, office sales. Multifamily is really taking over in Ocala and everywhere else, and distribution, just because we're all going to the internet. I think AI might kind of affect us, but I think we're years and years away from AI being.
You need people for everything.
Yeah, you'll always need people.
Self-checkout still has somebody standing there.
Yeah, and I mean they've got the McDonald's now that it's all computer ran. Somewhere I don't know where. I know that when I was in banking they tried that.
5-star restaurant has computer ran.
Yeah,
That's the answer. You're always going to need people.
You're going to need people.
People are going back to
Yeah.
the office is the question.
Yeah.
They're going back.
Yep, they are.
They're going back.
Yeah.
And they tied it to their 401ks. They tied it to retirements. The REITs own the buildings. The buildings are empty. The REITs can't. Well, Blackstone already wrote off part of it. But what they're going to do is they're going to reset evaluations. And in order to reset evaluations, they need people in the buildings to relend on. So, example, I mentioned my brother's in a large corporation. He's one of the very few people in that company that's not being forced to go back. I know someone else who's an actuary. She just had a baby, and they said anyone who lives X amount of miles from X is no longer employed here. Everyone else has to. It's the way it goes. Oh, sorry, you lost your retirement, or go to work. Oh, sorry. So that's the matrix that no one sees. Is it's already in play. So it'll act like, again, that's why I blah 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 to Jim before, because everyone, I don't trade stocks because I know people who call and say, oh, by the way, it's going to crash on Friday at X. If it's that manipulated, I have no interest in it. Sports is the same thing. It's all manipulated. So you got to stick to what you know. And I know they're going back to the office because the people with money can't charge them for not being in the office. And they've been losing money. And that's why they frighten people with interest rates. Bullshit. A year from now, it's not even going to be a problem. They feed people in fear, because when you're in fear, you don't learn. You don't read, you don't learn. You're asking everybody else what's going on. Stick your finger in the water. What temperature is it? Ask everybody else. How's your job? How's this? How's that? I know we've been in an incredible economy, and I know people spend way more money than they make. That's going to happen regardless of what's going on. So you're going to have to pay the piper. But the other answer to that, while we're at it, is the single-family houses aren't going to empty the way they did last time. The loans will be called, but there'll be 4 and 5 generations, probably 3 and 4 generations of people living in the same house. And it'll be a nice house, but the income of the house won't be $1.5 million. It'll be $650,000, and they'll all lease. So when the notes get called, the houses won't go empty. So all that means is they're still going to shop on Amazon. Distribution still needs to be there. People still going to need to go into distribution. Dollar General is going to be there. You can automate anything. There's still going to be somebody there when it screws up. So that's my answer. It's all fine. Just don't spend more than you make. Don't do things you're not supposed to. It's all this. That's what free will is that people forgot about.
Yeah. So as we're, I love you guys, all of you. All right. So we've got a few minutes left. What I want to do is let's start with Beau. Beau, where can people go connect with you, and what does the perfect deal look like for you?
So I said I do 75% leasing, which I do there's some pretty good money in leasing. But first off, to connect with me, I've got 1 or 2 signs around town. The number's on the sign, or my website, which is really easy. It's just beaubroker.com. I'm also on Craigslist, LoopNet, CoStar, 23 other websites.
Google's got it figured out.
Facebook, I got Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. I don't use Twitter very often, but I got on there last night for the first time. CEP member directory.
Yeah.
I am a CEP partner. I also made them some pretty cool shirts this year, and nobody's wearing them.
Thanks for those, bud.
So what does the
We wear those on Mondays.
I went with the Nike one,
Yeah.
so I'll be happy.
They're great ones.
They look great.
Yeah.
What's the perfect deal look like for you?
So I'm gonna be, I try to do deals. So I was told to live off the small deals and cherish the big ones, right? So I do a good amount of small ones that takes care of the bills, but once or twice a year I try to do a big sale. So my lease, I do a lot of leases that are $1 million+ commissions. A lot of y'all that don't know, commissions work the same on leasing. If it's a 20 or if it's a 10-year lease, I get paid 50% whenever the lease is signed. I get 50% whenever they move in or they get their CO, whichever comes first. The bigger, the better. I mean, and the other thing with know when to say no is a lot of times I'm not dealing with the small $800 commission. So I only have 4 hours a week, right? Is that the book? I only have 4 hours a week of my time. The rest goes to my family and friends. So what am I going to do in that 4 hours? My first year, the owner of Front Street came to me and well, this will be my second year. He said, here's what you made. We told it up. We took it over 40 hours. And he said, now you got to think, are you doing, I think it was $250 or something, $200 an hour, something like that. I don't know what it was. He said, are you working worth $200? How are you achieving that in this hour? And it kind of changed my mindset to where I was, thinking, okay, well, no, now I've got a lot of other stuff that I do. I wear all the hats, but it really comes down to productivity. So there are, he said he doesn't take on doctors. There's a lot of deals that I don't take on. The one listing that I left with NAI and what didn't take was a doctor. Pass the mic on that.
So, Crystal, where can people find you? Like, what's a good contact point, and what does a perfect deal look like for you?
So I would hope you could just Google me and find my phone number easily. My cell phone's the best way to reach me. crystalsnookgroup.com. Perfect deal. So where I'm at in my business, I do a lot of residential sales primarily. I like to work my personal database, and then any new leads are given out to agents in my office. So perfect deal for me is supporting the agents in my office.
That's a good broker.
Yes, that is a good broker.
If y'all are in residential or commercial and your broker is not like that,
Leave.
Yep.
Yeah,
do it yourself.
for sure.
Thomas?
What's the question?
Thomas, where?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Hey, Thomas, what do you want to talk about?
You got 2 minutes. Pull this out.
2 minutes. What's on your brain?
No, there was a question.
Yeah. What does so where can people find you, and what does the perfect deal look like?
Perfect deal is one that's going to close. So if you got a deal that's going to close, call me. ThomasOldenburg.com, Thomas@ThomasOldenburg.com. My cell phone is 845-416-0732. Text me or call me, email me, call me again if I don't have it. Text me if my voicemail is full. I look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah. All right. So let's give a round of applause for our panelists. All right. Chris, did you have something?
I was going to ask Beau clarification. So are you looking for you want assets under management that you can lease out, or you're looking for people who need a space, like a doctor or a business owner?
So I'm the lead.
Yes.
I don't do much tenant rep. Yes.
Yes.
But so I obviously as the listing broker, tenants call me. I typically represent the landlord or owners.
Okay. So
Listings is my main thing. I take on listings. I don't work with
Tyler's a director. He's a conductor. If you've ever seen Tyler in the back, he'll be like,
I need to learn.
"Shut up, Josh," and you go. Yeah, he was telling me to shut up. And I love that about him. He's a conductor. What we're going to do is just one more minute of just me chatting real quick, and then I want to give you guys time to connect with them. At 12:30, I've got to steal them away, so you guys will have some time to connect with them, ask questions, dig deeper, ask the tough questions, or just say thank you, which I definitely want you guys to do. We've been asked by our community for a lot more of real estate specific stuff, real estate investing, acquisitions, especially with what's going on in the market, where people have been reaching out to me through our podcast shows, the Deal Scout, CRE Principles, LinkedIn. People have just been asking for a lot of real estate specific acquisitions and investing. So what we wanted to do, me and Jeremy and Chris, we just wanted, if anybody is interested in doing more of this, but kind of as more of a collaborative club, we just have some information you could get with Jeremy or Chris. We're just going to start some type of real estate acquisition club that kind of goes deeper into real estate specific stuff. So if you're interested in that, just let us know, and we'll probably follow up with just a few questions. So either one of these guys will be able to help. One more time, a round of applause for our panelists. Thank you, guys.
All right, so you guys can chat if you want.